You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Good evening. Today we're going to do the show like it's a golf tournament, and we're just going to talk like this the whole day. I thought that'd be kind of fun and something a little different and save my voice, but I have a feeling this will actually get annoying pretty quickly. So we'll just go ahead and talk normal. So Triple B starts with a question about The Witcher Season 3. I will be watching it. I love The Witcher. I've absolutely loved the first two seasons. I have not watched Season 3 yet because I know it's only the first part of Season 3. And also I was saving it to watch with Lisa, which will probably happen this weekend. So there will be Witcher talk, but it won't be this week. Also, so you guys know, there is only a show today and tomorrow. On Thursday, I will not be doing the show, mainly because I got a notification from the electric company, and it seems they're replacing power poles in the area. And anytime between 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, there might be power outages because they'll be taking poles down, putting poles up, having to shut the power off repeatedly. And I don't think I can actually get on here and start a show and then suddenly go black. So there will be no show Thursday, but we will be here today and tomorrow. One of the things I want to talk about real quick at the cold open is there is the second trailer for the Blue Beetle just dropped today. A lot of trailers dropped today, but the second one for Blue Beetle dropped. And I got to tell you, I actually like how this movie looks. Now, I know that there's a lot of, DC is spiraling out of control, stuff like that. But of the movies, because it has zero ties to any of the universes, there's a possibility that this movie might do all right. It didn't cost that much to make. It was originally meant to be on HBO Max. So it doesn't need to make millions and millions and millions. It only costs like $80 million to make. So if it has a decent opening and can stay on the charts for just a couple weeks, it's probably going to make its money back. If it gets a $40 million opening, it makes half its money back there. Now, that's not counting the advertising budget, of course. But you then add in the international numbers. I have a feeling it'll do well in some of the overseas markets. You have a Latino lead with a Latino family, so you're going to pick up some of those markets. You have kind of an anime-looking character, so I think you'll pick up the Asian market. So I think there's a good possibility that Blue Beetle may not do like Marvel movie good, but I think it will do more than expected. And I think that because it's not the end of the Snyderverse, it's just kind of in between everything, it may slip through without all the negativity and stuff. So I'm hoping, I'm going to give it a shot. I think it looks pretty good. I love the character of the Blue Beetle. I like how they're going to pay homage to all the different versions of the Blue Beetle. It's not forgetting that, Dan Garrett was the first and Ted Kord was the second. And we might even get a Ted Kord in this, or at least we know that he's part of it because we see his lab and stuff. So I'm looking forward to this one. It's actually one of the few movies lately coming out that I've been looking forward to. So, all right, let's go ahead. We'll take our first break, and we come back. We'll hit the news. We're going to talk about those photos that dropped and see where the day takes us. So stick around. We'll be right back. everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We're going to have a fun day today. Stick around, though. We got a full lineup. We've got in stores this week, Minute to Skim It, and The Mint Hunter. So we got a full lineup today. You want to stick around for all of that. Let's see. We got Triple B, Ed, Josh, and JD in the house. We got Jay on the board. JD brings up the idea of comic movie fatigue. And comic movie fatigue is pretty much a term that has been thrown out there for so long that I have fatigue about hearing about comic movie fatigue. You know, people keep saying it, and then another big blockbuster comes out, and another big blockbuster comes out. And then more, well, it's going to be movie fatigue. And then one does less than great, and it's comic book movie fatigue. If you make a good movie, people are going to go see it. If you make a bad movie, they're not going to go see it. DC has not been putting out good movies. They're not doing well. Marvel, Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy did great. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse did great. I think the only thing holding that back was that there's so many other movies that if it had a little more room in the box office, like if they would have put it out in November, I think it would have doubled its income. So I don't think people have movie fatigue. I think they're tired of these big multiverse spectacles, and they're up for seeing a more personal movie. The marketing for Guardians of the Galaxy made it very personal. The marketing for Across the Spider-Verse made it very personal. I think if they market Blue Beetle as being a personal film, then it's going to do fine. If they try to make it, I'm a little worried about what we're seeing about Deadpool. Now, Deadpool may be insulated from that because people expect it to be crazy, but I think people may be burned out on multiverse movies and nostalgia filmed movies, and they want a good story, not just actors from the past popping back up. But I'm not buying comic movie fatigue until we see something that is really good, that basically the general populace likes, and then it doesn't do well. As long as we get all these, we get these reviews that come out that are negative and stuff like that, that's not really movie fatigue. That's bashing and critics and stuff. So let's see. JD says, I suspect the gimmick of BB is the first of the new universe isn't going to attract near as many people as Gunn and company think it's going to. I don't think that's my point with Blue Beetle, is it doesn't need to hit that many people. It doesn't need to do first Shazam numbers. It was a movie made on the cheap. So if it breaks 100 million domestically, and I don't mean opening weekend, I mean over its time in the theater, then it's a success. So if it opens for 40 or 50, that's huge. It doesn't need to make that much because, like I said, it was made on a cheaper budget because it was made for HBO Max. So they don't have to spend as much marketing it. Most movies only spend double its budget. So if it cost 80 million and they spent 80 million on marketing, then it needs 160 globally to be considered a success. And that's not bad. That's not that hard to reach nowadays. And again, like I said, I think there's going to be some interest in it in other markets. So we'll see how that goes, though. Josh says, comic movie fatigue isn't real. What that does mean, however, is that the spectacle of an amazing looking comic movie isn't enough anymore. Yeah, it needs to mean something. It needs to be a good movie. Just spectacles aren't going to sell movies on their own anymore. Slip says that yellow Wolverine suit is pretty good. I wonder if he'll wear the mask. We're going to talk a big chunk about that costume later in the show. So stick around for that. Josh says, if the Blue Beetle trailer dropped in 2004, it would have been revolutionary. In 2033. It just looks completely generic. Well, yeah. But again, you're hitting a different market. So, and, you know, in 2004, it probably would have done 80, 90 million opening. Now it just needs to do about 40. So we'll see. Like I said, I don't know. It does come down to how they're going to market it. It also comes down to what the state of Hollywood is at that point. If there's still no contract with the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild, then there's going to be no late night shows to promote on, which is a big part of marketing. There's not going to be the actors going out and hyping the movies, stuff like that. Like right now, Blue Beetle is going to be hurt by the fact that DC isn't doing a big presentation at San Diego Con. Now, if they were smart, they could get one of the smaller ballrooms and show the movie one time. You know, make sure there's no cameras and stuff, and if it's a good movie, let the word of mouth build off of that. That could be a great way to do it. But yeah, it really comes down to, are they going to have the avenues to advertise it? JD says, comic movie fatigue is real. I took a whole year off of Marvel after Endgame. It's real. Well, you have the fatigue, but I like I said, the numbers, they're still the top of the box office when they come out. You know, it's just, and also we're running them through this gauntlet of movies that every weekend there seems to be this new movie coming out, this new blockbuster. And maybe if the studios spread it out a little bit so that, we don't get Guardians and then, Transformers and then The Flash and then Indiana Jones and just boom, 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 and let these movies have a moment to actually build up. But I believe it's real to people on a personal level. Yeah. Now, there are going to be people who are tired of superhero movies, but like I said, I don't think it's a general populist thing. I don't think you can look at the audience and go, oh, it's like when Westerns fell out of favor. It just happened. They weren't making any money. We're still seeing things make money. So Slipknot says, I agree, CBM fatigue isn't real, but low quality and oversaturation is what put people off. Exactly. You make a good movie, it's going to do well. All right, let's get into the news. We got a few things to cover. One of the things is they released speaking of trailers, there was a few trailers today. We got a trailer for Ahsoka that includes our first look at Lars Mikkelsen as Grand Admiral Thrawn. So that's what people have been wanting. But the other thing is that we get the reveal of how the series is going to be released. Now, it's going to premiere on August 23rd, and it's going to be 2 episodes. So they're back to doing the 2-episode thing, which tells me that maybe the first episode's a little on the slow side, and they feel that they need to punch it up a bit. So that's what, when you get 2, it's like Secret Invasion didn't feel like it needed 2. This one does. So that's going to be August 23rd. And the series will have a 5-week release plan running until Wednesday, September 20th. The 2-episode debut is similar to what they did with Andor. Actually, Andor, I think, premiered 3 episodes, but Obi-Wan Kenobi and The Bad Batch did 2. So the plan is going to be August 23rd, we get 2 episodes, August 30th one, September 6th, then September 13th, and then the finale on September 20th. So this is kind of an interesting little story. Haley Atwell was talking to Collider, and she ended up talking about who her previous husband was in the MCU, because we know that in Civil War, we see Peggy has passed away, or is dying, and she had been married, and then we see Peggy's funeral. So we get that whole thing, but we never see who it is. Well, it turns out that was a last minute decision. She says, I remember when we were filming it, the prop master had put a framed photograph of on Peggy's bedside, of Peggy with her husband and her children. And Louis D'Esposito ran over just before we started rolling and said, going to take that out. We don't know yet. We don't want to limit ourselves by kind of suggesting that this is who she married. And that was taken out. And I thought, okay, that's really interesting. She went on to say, so that I think what Marvel is so good at, they're good at giving audiences what they want and exceeding the expectations. And I think that's why they're always aware of just feeding the amount of information that the audience need to know to keep engaged, but also delighting them and surprising them with new information. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they had planned and took a photo of her and her husband and then went, no, let's not do that. Let's not give that away yet. So, comicbook.com, my headcanon is Daniel Souza. I get that. And for a lot of Agent Carter fans, it is. But if you're an Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, you know that Daniel Souza ends up in the future with Quake, oddly enough. Anyway, comicbook.com recently interviewed Owen Wilson about Loki season 2. And they asked him, and it says, I know you can't tell much, but I'm dying to know if we're going to learn more about him, being Mobius, in his TVA life, because all we know now, we have one clue, is jet skis. Are we going to learn a little more? And I think he means about Mobius's life prior to the TVA. And Wilson says, and I will not do an Owen Wilson imitation. I think so. I really, working on the first one, I thought I would have a good time, but I really enjoyed it. And I've been lucky working on a million movies that most of the time I have a good time, but sometimes I have a great time. And that one I really did. And that continued on season 2, maybe even more so, because we were filming in London, being there at Pinewood. And yeah, the story just goes a little deeper. So I'm all for that. I like the character of Mobius. I didn't know how I would take to Owen Wilson being part of the MCU, but I really do like his take on the character. So I'm glad to see we're going to get more of that. Did you guys get a chance to watch the new My Adventures with Superman? The new animated series that debuted on, well, it started on Adult Swim. It's available on Max. And if you don't have Max and you don't have, you missed it on Adult Swim, the Adult Swim YouTube channel has the first episode available on YouTube. So there's an option you can see it. But I'll give you my thoughts on it in a minute. But back in November, they were talking to co-producer Josephine Campbell about the series. And she kind of gave a hint on what the plan is. She says there's a lot of excitement for fans to see. I can't wait for fans to see the relationship between Lois, Clark, and Jimmy. These three are the heart of our show, and their friendship and adventures together drive the series and the character arcs for both season 1 and season 2. So this sounds like that they've been planning out 2 seasons of this show. Now, I watched it. I watched the first episode. I believe they've released 2 episodes, but I watched the first one. And I had a rough time with part of it. The animation's interesting. The characters are fine. Lois is way over the top. And there's a moment where Jimmy is basically needling Clark about him liking Lois. Now, this just struck me as wrong because this is supposed to be kind of geared towards kids. And I don't know, that picking on somebody kind of came across wrong for me as kind of bullying a little bit. But I turned it off at that point and then came back to it later. Overall, it's pretty good. I do think the characters they're supposed to be younger. They're all interns. Even Lois is an intern. So they're supposed to be on the younger side. It really comes across with heavy manga influences. So if that is your kind of thing, then this show is probably something you'll like. If you're not a fan of those kind of animated series, this may be a rougher one for you to watch. So just keep that in mind. Josh says, I saw episode 1. It was cute and absolutely forgettable. Interesting how they're reworking the typical mythos for an online audience or anime audience. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it doesn't come out as it feels like they tried to take the Earth One Superman series, some of the concepts of it, and make it into an anime series, and really clung on to the anime part of it. So we'll see how that works out. Jay says, I saw a certain part and heard the Sailor Moon theme playing, but I'm going to watch it. I don't know why you'd heard the Sailor Moon theme, but all right. Another trailer dropped today. And I find this interesting because it's a trailer for Wonka, the prequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And it stars Timothy Chalamet. And we see that Hugh Grant's in it as, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Hugh Grant plays an Oompa Loompa. Rowan Atkinson's in it. And I saw a headline. And it said that Timothy Chalamet's Wonka has the perfect mix of Gene Wilder and Johnny Depp. And that is probably a great headline if you like the Gene Wilder version and you like the Johnny Depp version. I could care less about the Johnny Depp version. I didn't like his version. So I had to watch it, and I had that in my mind. So I had to watch it a second time. There is some nice stuff in it, some nice moments. He does have a bit of the Gene Wilder to him, and he does have a bit of the Johnny Depp to him, too. So I think this is going to be one of those where it's going to really come down to each individual person. I don't think this is going to be a hit. I don't think this is going to, just run away the box office. But it's going to probably do okay. So, all right, we're going to move on to one other bit of news. And this is some comic news that came out today, but it kind of feels like it ties into movies. Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing are taking over Thunderbolts for Marvel. But they're carrying over from their time with Bucky Barnes. So they're bringing Bucky in to run the Thunderbolts. Now, one of the things that they've done, and I have not read what they did with Bucky recently, but I guess he has a new name. He calls himself Revolution, which is really kind of lame. I mean, I'm not sure why they decided on that name. I mean, he could be the Winter Soldier, he could be White Wolf. There's a lot of options. But Revolution just seems like not even the revolutionary, just Revolution. But the interesting thing, and we're going to move on past the name, is he gets a new team of Thunderbolts. And who's on it this is what makes it feel like a tie into the upcoming Thunderbolts movie. Because he's going to be running the show along with Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who we know is currently putting the Thunderbolts together. It's going to include U.S. Agent, who we've seen is going to be in the movie, Red Guardian, who's going to be in the movie, White Widow, who is Yelena Belova and will be in the movie. But it also has Sharon Carter, who used to go by Agent 13, but I guess she's now going by the Destroyer. That one's news to me. It's going to have Natasha Romanoff in it, who we all know is dead in the movies. And it's going to have Shang-Chi, which was kind of an interesting touch. But this boils it down to super soldiers and spies, which is kind of where they're going with the movie, where previously there was people with superpowers. So where a lot of people are assuming that Thunderbolts will eventually add Abomination and Songbird and some of these other characters to make them more of a Suicide Squad, this might be the way they're actually going and making it more of a spy unit, a super soldier spy unit. So don't be surprised if they go that direction. All right, I think that catches us up on the news. I will check my sources on the break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about that yellow suit. So be right back.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. I do have one additional bit of news that just dropped, and I don't think Marvel has done this before, but they have released 6 deleted scenes for the Miss Marvel TV series. They're available on Disney Plus in the extras section, and they are various scenes of stuff like Kamala and her brother talking about her sneaking out for Avengers Con, a scene of Zoe telling the people in the lunch, telling the rest of the school about being saved by the superhero at Avenger Con. Bruno and Kamala talking after he gets injured. Her spending more time in Karachi with Kareem. An alternate scene of Kamala and Aisha's first meeting in the past, and then a scene with her and her mother flying back from Karachi. So there's quite a few additional scenes that they've popped up there. I'll have to get a chance to watch them. All right, what else we got going on? Kenneth is here. Hello. Hey, John. Good to see you. All right. Let's talk about the yellow elephant in the room. Ryan Reynolds posted an image. Then a high-res version was posted by Marvel, and it's blowing up from there. Hugh Jackman in the in classic Wolverine-inspired costume. Now, I know that overall, the online response has been positive. And I say overall because there have been some negative stuff. There's been a lot of talk about why he has sleeves, because Wolverine doesn't normally have sleeves. And some of the interesting response has to do with the fact that Hugh Jackman has had a history with melatonin, with skin cancer. So people are saying, well, obviously they want to protect his skin. That's why they did it. And it's like, okay, maybe that is the case. He did have something removed from his nose just prior to starting on The Greatest Showman. So, yeah, it's possible, but I don't know. I've seen some people complain that he's not wearing the mask or the helmet or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know. I think we're lucky to get him in this far if we don't get the mask. But I mean, he's even got the hair. But there's a good chance we will get the mask for a while, I think. The suit is kind of set up to have a mask just like Deadpool's is. It's almost like the suits are pretty similar in a lot of ways in design structure. And then the other one, which I just think is absolutely hilarious, people are complaining that he's not wearing the brown and tan that he wore later. He switched to, and I'm like, that would be like somebody complaining he's not in the Fang costume with the tooth necklace and the little scarab thing on his the wolf head on his chest. Let's see. Let me catch up, people here. JD says, so they're not going to re-release Miss Marvel Theater with an unfinished CGI Hulk tag at the end. Ed says, I love it. John, let's see. Just give you that cue, Dan. Okay. So what does this mean? What are we going to actually get with Deadpool? I think we're going to get a lot of photos that are going to be hard to explain. And we're getting a lot of rumors, like all the major sites like Deadline and Hollywood Reporter are saying that Jennifer Garner is returning as Elektra. And we've gotten rumors that Ben Affleck is going to show up as Daredevil. And most of the regular Avengers are going to show up. Famke Janssen, James Marsters, Patrick Stewart, and Halle Berry. So and talk about Chris Evans as the Human Torch. Now, and that's not as far-fetched as you think, because Chris Evans has already cameoed in a movie with Ryan Reynolds and this director. He was in Free Guy. So it's possible. JD says it's Reynolds. He'll wear the mask. From now until they release day, they'll probably CG modify Wolverine's suit anyway. Yeah, probably. I overall like the suit. I just wish the belt was all blue, because I think it looks better when you have a clear breakup of all that yellow. So if they would do the blue, the actual belt in all blue, I think that would be better. But overall, I think it's a really good design. So let's take a look at some of the other set photos that have popped up. Here we see him. Now you'll notice that the claws, they have the little spots for the claws, but they're not out. And of course, they'll CGI the claws. The claws weren't originally supposed to be part of his body. They were supposed to be part of the costume, as Len Wein described it. And I'll show you, how that didn't happen until later. So originally, the claws were supposed to be in his gloves, his gauntlets. So that's, it's kind of cool to see them actually bring back. But I've also noticed that they're much further up. They're actually right between the knuckles, where in the early designs, they were back a ways from the knuckle by about that far. But that's kind of interesting. So what do we got next? Now here we see the two of them fighting. And there's a good chance that what we're going to end up with is kind of a take on Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which was the comic series. And I don't think it'll be exactly a match. I don't think we're going to end up with him destroying the Marvel Universe. I think what we're going to get is him destroying the Fox Universe. And they may even say that. And the reason I think that they may even say it is the next photo. I'm pretty sure that's the Fox logo in the background that's partly destroyed. So, yeah, it does seem like we're going to get, that story. And we know that the TVA is supposed to be involved. Owen Wilson may make a cameo, though there's supposed to be another TVA agent that plays by can't remember the man's name. So I want to say it's like Matthew Vaughn, but it's not. But he was in Succession. So he's supposed to be a TVA agent. And they're trying to track Deadpool down. Because if you remember the end of Deadpool 2, he ends up with a time device where he's jumping around all over the place and killing Ryan Reynolds and killing another version of Deadpool and talking to Wolverine. So, I mean, they kind of set this up. So I expect that this movie is going to be absolutely insane. They're going to try to bring back as many of the previous characters as possible. Whether or not they get all of them, I don't know. And which ones. I forgot that Daredevil was considered part of the Fox thing. But that means that they might be able to get Nicolas Cage back as Ghost Rider. Or maybe Michael Chiklis shows up as the Thing. There's a lot of possibilities that they could do. And it would be kind of closing the book, kind of tipping the hat and closing the book on those characters. Please kill Ang Lee's Hulk. Eric Bana showing up would be funny. I think Wesley Snipes showing up as Blade would be interesting. Especially if Ryan Reynolds ends up reprising his role as Hannibal King from Blade. and killing himself. When is that movie? The Deadpool 3 got moved up to November of 2024, I believe it is. So they're filming it now, and they're trying to get it filmed before the actors go on strike. And they're not supposed to be ad-libbing because the writers strike, and ad-libbing is considered writing. So it's got to be a little bit difficult. Slip says, I think if this movie is good, it could make 1.5 billion worldwide or even more. With all of the people in it, yes. This is where I think the burnout might be, though, is that we've had so many movies with so many Easter egg characters. You know, we had had Spider-Man Far From Home, or No Way Home. We had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We had the two Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. And then we get the Flash. And then Everywhere, All at Once. Everything Everywhere All at Once. It did the same kind of thing. And that might be what people are burning out on. That, you know, they don't want big movies like that. They want, you know, or Quantum Mania, you know. They want cities and they want real stakes, you know. And eventually, if you keep making the stakes bigger and bigger and more outlandish, you're going to lose people. If it's not a personal film, I think that was the problem with Thor: Love and Thunder, is that they really didn't take the time to make it about the characters. So, Jay says Deadpool was one of 3 of my dream movies to have been done already. Deadpool and Logan, Old Man Logan, now just need Blackest Night. All right. So yeah, I think they've hit a home run with the costume. I think fans are really going to want the mask, and I think, knowing Ryan Reynolds, they're going to put the mask on him. Now, it could end up being a CG mask, you know, but you're not seeing dots on his face and stuff. So I don't think it'll be CG in that scene. And I don't think he'll wear it the whole time. Where Ryan Reynolds' character has the pock-marked face. So it's not like you take the mask off and you see Ryan Reynolds. You see more makeup. So wearing the mask actually is easier than sitting all that time in the makeup chair. But when you got Hugh Jackman, most people want to see Hugh Jackman. They want to know it's not a stunt double. So just no nanotech, please. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there. I'm just hoping that people aren't so burned out on multiverse movies that it hurts it. That would be my only thought. Though I do find it interesting. The first Deadpool movie was very standalone. I know people who knew nothing about comics and don't watch comic movies, and they saw Deadpool and loved it. Those same people then watched Deadpool 2 and didn't like it. And they didn't like it because there was so much comic in jokes. So I'm hoping they find a better balance for that. And with the fact that it's Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy who did Free Guy, I think there's the possibility they'll get it right this time. So let's see. But why would he wear a mask? Everyone knows him, so I'm skeptical. Guess we'll see. But we don't know what version of Wolverine this is. You know, this may be a Wolverine that comes from an Earth where he does need to hide his face. You know, that they are trying to keep their identity secret. The X-Men, a lot of the X-Men wear masks. A lot don't, which is kind of weird. You think there'd be a consistency, but yeah. I think the fan service will be the reason they put the mask on. So, all right, we're going to take our break, and then we're going to come back with some key collectibles, and that'll be the show. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, Well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons while you got a chance. And let's jump right into some Wolverine Key Issues. Now, I found this was really interesting because I forgot how secretive Wolverine was when they first brought him out. A lot of the things we know about the character weren't things we learned about him right away. There were things that were revealed in time, which then makes you wonder how much of the stuff was just added and how much was actually part of the character initial design. So we start off with, of course, in 1969, in Avengers number 66, was the first ever mention of adamantium. Now this goes for about 160 on the high end, 55 on the median, 15 on the low end. But yeah, up until then, there was no adamantium in the Marvel Universe. Then we get the first cameo appearance of Wolverine in Incredible Hulk number 180 in 1974. Now this, of course, is the controversy whether a cameo counts as a first appearance or if a full appearance counts as a first appearance. This one goes for $4,400 on the high end, $1,200 on the median, $275 on the low end. Then, of course, we get the first full appearance of Wolverine. And I think most people consider that the first appearance, the full appearance. This goes for $11,000 for Hulk 181. Median range is about 4,500. Low end is 1,000. And I have this somewhere in my collection. I should probably dig it up. All right. Next up after that, Giant Size X-Men number 1 from 1975. Now this is the first appearance of the new X-Men. Was Thunderbird, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Wolverine, and Storm. Also Banshee. But the interesting thing here is that, this big reveal, this book is worth less than Hulk 181. This one's worth, the high end is only 7,000, median's 2,200, low end is 700. I thought it would be the other way around because of how many important characters are being introduced, but Wolverine by himself is the more valuable. Moving on to Uncanny X-Men number 96. This was from 1975, and this is where they debuted his Berserker Rage. So until then, they really didn't know anything about the character. We didn't know what his mutant powers were or any of that stuff. Where, what his, all the laced bones and things, none of that was part of the character initially. Now this goes for $240 on the high end, $110 on the median, $40 on the low. Then we get to X-Men number 98 in 1976, and this is where Wolverine's claws are revealed to be part of his body, not part of the costume, like I said, as Len Wein had originally intended in the design. Now this goes for $145 on the high end, $35 on the median, $12 on the low end. X-Men number 100 from 1976. This is the first time he and Colossus did the fastball special, which now everybody loves. But yeah, it was a while before they actually got to doing the fastball special. This goes for $630 on the high end, $180 on the median, $55 on the low end. X-Men 103 from 1977. It's the first time we found out that his first name was Logan. And of course, we know that's not his real name, but that he was going by the name of Logan. So up until then, they only ever referred to him as Wolverine. He'd been out since '74. So for 3 years, they never got around to telling us his first name. This goes for $65 on the high end, $18 on the median, $5 on the low end. Uncanny X-Men number 116. Now this is really interesting. Here is 1978. The character's been around for 4 years, and this is the first time that it's even hinted at that he has a healing ability beyond normal healing. Again, this is, like I said, the first time. His healing never came up in anything else. Now, all of a sudden, you get the hint of it. You don't even get a full reveal. This goes for $3, medians $2, low ends $1. And then we get, by the way, the prices on the last one sound funny now that I think about it. I would have to double check those. But Uncanny X-Men number 133 from 1980. This is one of my favorites. This is him versus the Hellfire Club, Wolverine. This is the first time that he's alone on the cover. Now, he's not by himself, but there's no other X-Men on the cover. This is Wolverine solo on the cover, fighting a bunch of the henchmen from the Hellfire Club. This is the one that I think if you open the front page, it has him in the sewers looking up angry. The John Byrne image, it's amazing. But this is where they actually confirm about his healing ability. This is where we find out that what his real mutant ability is, and it's 6 years after his debut. High end on this goes for $150, median is $50, low end is $15. So some pretty cool issues there. I remember the books coming out, but I didn't get that. I started reading about 75. I was 5 years old. So the X-Men and stuff kind of came on later. I started with like Cap and Spidey and stuff like that. But when I got to the X-Men, and I was able to trade a buddy of mine when I was a kid for Hulk 181, Wolverine started becoming one of my favorite characters. But I think by the time he did, a lot of the stuff we know about him had been revealed. That his name was Logan, that that he had the healing ability, stuff like that. I don't know if the Weapon X program had come into play yet when I started reading. So, but it's just really fascinating to me to see just how much of the character that we know and love really wasn't put forward up front. When he first appeared, we knew he was Canadian or from the Canadian government, and that was it. That he fashioned himself after a Wolverine, and he was short. We didn't know the type of metal. All of that stuff came later, which, how much of his popularity is based off the things that were added and how much were in the initial design. The costume design was pretty good in the beginning, but then he's also one of the few people to successfully change costumes. You know, I mean, a lot of these iconic characters, they change costumes and they have to change back. Iron Man tried to go to silver and gold or silver and red. He ended up going back to gold and red. Captain America tried to move away from the red, white, and blue, ended up back in the costume. Spider-Man has multiple times has gotten different costumes. We see it in Across the Spider-Verse, but he always comes back to the blue and red, or black and red, depending on your perception. But Wolverine went from having the classic yellow and blue to getting the two-tone brown, the brown and tan. And we were good with that for a long time. And again, that's pretty rare. There aren't many characters that can go through a costume change and not have people complain and want it changed back. Again, that's usually what happens. So, short ears, long hair, yeah. When Frank Miller and John Byrne did the miniseries, you know, I think they got kind of carte blanche to do what they wanted, and in doing so, they changed the character pretty drastically. You know, suddenly there was an entire Asian backstory for him, having to do with samurais and stuff that we didn't know anything about. It's like, well, I thought he was Canadian. You know, didn't he get his powers from a Tim Hortons? But yeah, it's just fascinating how every other character fans grasp onto and refuse to let change. But Wolverine, they're like, yeah, it's cool. Short hair, long hair, gruff, whatever. Who's he in love with? Doesn't matter. Jean Grey, Yukio, whatever, we're good. Amazing character. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up today. We'll be back in just a couple minutes with In Stores This Week, which will be myself, Jay, and Kyle. And we got all first issues, all #1 issues this week. So check it out. And I'll see you later.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.